How many of y'all know that marriage is a very sacred thing and is a very special thing because it's intended for two people who's choosing to choose each other, two people to commit to each other and to live their life out together. So then you kind of have a you should be growing in friendship, so it should be a built-in friendship. Someone, even when y'all going through rough patches, that you can depend on and know that they'll always be there. And so in the scripture it says what God put together, let no man put us under. And so when a man and a woman decides to make that commitment to get married and to invite, you should be inviting God into it, because that way it keeps us from being selfish. It keeps us from just making the marriage all about us, because marriage is intended to make us, it's a relationship that you're continuously growing in, and you're there's a mirror continuously being reflected in your face, because it's not just your life anymore. It's two people who's choosing to become one. So you start off as two people, but in the end you should be operating as one, and that could take years to grow into oneness. And so um in a marriage, there should be trust being built. There should be communication. You should be looking to become each other's number one best friends. And so, like in Genesis 2, it says, you become bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh. And it says that when a man marries finds a wife, he leaves his mother and father and cleaves to her. And um so that suggests that, when you leave, you're starting a whole new family. So what woman come from one family, the man come from one family, but when you decide to get married, you're leaving your parents and you're becoming creating your own new family. And so whereas the certain there were ways that the woman was um the belief systems that they use or how she was raised may be different from the way that man was raised. So you're coming from two different backgrounds, but when you coming together, you're having to now blend everything and figure out how y'all gonna raise your family, what's y'all vision gonna be. You're mashing together two different perspectives and mashing together to eventually become one. But that takes time. That takes time spending time with each other, like making each other the priority. So there's a new hierarchy. There's God, and once one come from over here, one come from over here, the husband and or the man and the woman that come together under God now, and they're building their own family. So then when you have kids, the kids come next, then immediate family, then friends. And so there's a new hierarchy. And so there's parents who use the scripture where you're supposed to honor me, but there's like you should honor your mother and father so your life will be long. Well, that scripture really applies. Honor and obeying, it has to do when your kids are younger, that they should obey you so their life should be long. But now they're adult, they don't have to obey you, because their life is they're not being raised anymore. They don't have to obey you, but they may still show you honor. And so a lot of times that scripture can be misconstrued by a parent maybe some trying to control your life, and so they may misuse that scripture and actually they're out of line. And so so a man and a woman should leave the parents. They should cleave to each other. And so um with that being said, sometimes people be having a hard time with that, and so they may still be doing everything that their parents tell them to do, even though they're have their own household. They're you know they're, have a responsibility. The man has a responsibility for the woman. Like, there's, there's a new hierarchy in place now. And so sometimes there are people who put family members, siblings, friends above their spouse, and in that case you're out of order. You should be cleaving to each other, getting to know each other. There's trauma that may need to be dealt with. And so in this relationship, this is the relationship that you will grow the most in, because in that relationship it's causing you to deal with your selfishness. Like, you can't hide. You stay with this person, you live with this person, you go to bed with them, you smell their breath when they wake up. You, as a spouse, you may even smell their little funk. They in the bathroom pooping while you brush your teeth. That there's just, you see the ins and out of a person that no other person gets the opportunity to see. And even, like, you get to do life with them day in and day out, and rather than like, okay, I'm gonna trade this person in for another one. No, you have made a commitment to walk off life even when it gets hard or you upset with that person. So in a relationship, you have to have forgiveness, you have to build trust. The communication is essential. So when things, rather than letting it fester or things bother you, you should be communicating to your spouse what bothers you, and for the other one, rather than being so easily offended when someone brings something to you, you should be challenging yourself, checking yourself to not be offended and to hear them and not be on the defense and hear what they have to say, so y'all growth can happen in the marriage. And so yes, there's in Matthew 5, it talked about that you have not committed adultery, but it says that if you lust after a woman, that you have already committed adultery in your heart. And so that scripture is so good. A lot of times we may check out, like we're going through difficulties, and we may go and talk to the opposite sex, sharing things, and we're, might be building emotional connection or talking about our spouses. Like, we should not be doing that, because of course you talk to the opposite sex, what they're gonna do, they're gonna validate you, especially if they would love to get with you, or bust up your marriage. And it says, what God has joined, let no man put us under. And so there's different, maybe going to your own, getting advice from an older woman, a woman getting advice from an older woman, or a man getting advice from an older man, to help them, to ask them how to, and you want to go to a married person, how they have overcome, how they work through. Now that's wisdom in doing that. But seeking the opposite sex, not necessarily, unless it's your dad or something that has somebody who has a successful marriage, and you may be getting advice, and it's then it's straight platonic, nothing, like a, yeah, then that may be, wisdom to maybe do that. And they have, good intentions towards you. But when an outside person, could be interested in you, and they're showing disrespect to your spouse, or showing, if it's in the marriage, or if maybe a relationship that you might have been married before, but you're trying to see if you could put your family together for the sake of, the commitment you had made, might have broken by being divorced. But even just trying to get the commitment back together for the sake of the kids, to cover them, then me personally, I would consider that almost being like under that of being in a relationship or being married, because a covenant was already made. But again, if it's not gonna work out, then there's the communication piece that has to be, the communication should be, communicating and expressing what is. But if you're choosing to work out, you should be having open communication, and that it requires both parties. So when one party just thinks that they had no fault, it's just all one person, that's gonna be a hard that's gonna be hard to make the relationship go and to be successful. It takes two people to make a relationship work, and it takes accountability on both parties. It takes rolling up your sleeves and putting in hard work. It takes dying to yourself. When pride is present, it's probably not gonna work. If you can't to have accountability, you can't if you only can see the other person's flaws, but you can't see your own and what part, how you could change, you can't actively work on the thing while you're in it. It's not gonna work. And so, but it's important to keep outsiders out. When there is a party that has been disrespectful, it is if it's the woman and the man, and if there's a guy being disrespectful to your relationship, that woman should be the one to check that. And if for the man, if it's a female that's being disrespectful to, especially the relationship you're saying you wanted to work and got kids and all the things involved, that person should be checking that person. And so again, the hierarchy is God, then it should be the marriage. And so then anybody else that's coming against the one flesh, coming against, because when you say one flesh, essentially they're coming against you. And so if y'all becoming one, that means that both of y'all should be protecting each other, and y'all are one, protecting that union and how it goes. And so anybody, family members, friends, old flings, any of that, anybody who comes against what God has been trying to work and do, and you believe that God had put it together, on top of you made the commitment, you should be willing to check that thing at the door. And so there's just like there's an order, a way things should go in the church, because it says the bride talks about the bridegroom and the church, becoming one and all that. There's order and the way things should be done in a marriage. There's order, and there is order in the way things should be done, and there's just certain things that should be sacred. And so I just felt like I want to just kind of touch on that tonight. All right, well, y'all have a good night.